What is going on, all of you amazing gamers out there in the world? I am MegaAmpster. Thank you for checking out this video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, appreciate you spending your time here. Thanks for being here. And today I am talking about a game that came out fairly recently as of this recording that has really grown on me, and that game is Penny's Big Breakaway. This is developed by Evening Star. Their first game under that name, however, they were the studio that worked on Sonic Mania. So Christian Whitehead and the team who had worked on Sonic Mania and other Sonic fan games before then. They are the ones who are comprising Evening Star, and they developed this game, and this is also published by Private Division. This is their first, I believe their first foray into 3D gaming. Of course, Sonic Mania and other Sonic like fan games being 2D. This is their first 3D outing, and I will say overall, before we even get into the details, I am very, very positive on this game. Like, I really enjoyed this game a lot. There are some issues that I'll get into a little bit. The way I kind of want to do this, like I've done this for some of my other kind of impressions or review videos, is talk about the non-spoilery stuff, which, to be honest, like, this game doesn't have a ton of spoilers, but I'll try to keep it light just in case, and then like later on at the end of the video, I'll dive into more of the spoilery, like later end game details. So with that, let's jump into it. I'm going to play along as I talk about it. So the main thing for me, I mean, first of all, well, okay, we got to talk about the presentation, right? The music's fantastic. They got T. Lopes back. He had worked on Sonic Mania. He also worked on the Mr. X Nightmare DLC for Streets of Rage 4, as well as TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and he's working on the upcoming Metal Slug Tactics, which I don't even know when that's coming out at this point, but I believe he's on the soundtrack for that, at least helping work on it. But I'll just start off a new story mode for this. They also got Sean Bialu, who I'm not familiar with his work. If any of you know any of his other work, let me know in the comments below. He also helped the soundtrack, and I think he did a great job. There's very few tracks, like song tracks in this game, that I actively don't like. I really can't think of many I dislike. And of course, the visual aesthetic is going for that Sega Saturn era kind of vibe. I will say in some cases it looks a little bit jarring, but I think it's because they were going for that very specific art style. It's super colorful. It looks great in motion. There are some stuff that look a little flat, but that's just because that's the aesthetic choice, you know? So I think in terms of going for that like Sega Saturn era aesthetic, I think they nailed it here. The main thing, though, as we get into gameplay here, that I do want to talk about, I think this is my biggest thing, besides, of course, the music, I love the soundtrack, for this game, is just the control. This game is just really fun when you get in a groove. It's a similar feeling for me as, like, I know if any of you watched my Bomb Rush Cyberpunk video from last year as of this recording, this game really does it for me. The main gimmick of this game, obviously, being a 3D platformer with a yo-yo. Now, that might sound like it doesn't add a lot, but trust me, it does. It's just the feeling of, we're about to get the yo-yo control in a second here. It's not fully upgraded yet, but just the feeling of throwing out this yo-yo, all the different moves you can do with the yo-yo, we'll explore in a bit. It just feels so good to play. And so once you get into that kind of flow of gameplay, it really, really ends up being fun. Being from the Sonic Mania team, it makes sense that the objective will be to get through the levels as fast as you can, really. There are some collectibles to collect along the way, which we'll get into in a second. But, you know, you're essentially trying to chain different moves together to get to the level pretty much as fast as you can. You're rewarded for speed, like Sonic. But unlike Sonic, Penny, who is the main character we're playing as, is inherently not a fast character. Like you can see here, she's running, she has a bit of a sprint, but it's not nearly anything close to Sonic. But what happens is, once we get this item over here, it's going to make things a lot faster for the character. I'm going to skip through some of these other cutscenes just to, I guess, avoid other spoilers, but also, you know, just to keep things a little more faster, for lack of a better term. Pun 100% intended. But yeah, so now we have the full-on yo-yo abilities, and there's some really cool abilities and moves you can do here. My favorite being this little grapple swing, because this can lead into so much more momentum. You might see on the right side here, we have a bit of a combo meter, kind of similar to something like Tony Hawk. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it really works for this game when you're trying to get through a level as fast as possible and kind of chain different moves together. You can do a bit of like it's kind of like a double jump twirl thing. There's also this yo-yo ride, they call it, which can be tough to control, but it's really fun once you get the hang of it. It does have a bit of a charge up, kind of similar to like a Sonic Spin Dash thing. I don't find it as useful, though, as the Sonic Spin Dash, which you can just kind of spam and go really fast. Whereas with Penny, it's a lot more skill-based momentum platforming than I was originally anticipating, but I think it really makes this game stand out from the crowd. I will say some of the NPCs in these levels have kind of funny dialogue. These ones are a little bit standard, but like whoever did the writing for the, shout out to the writing team. for this game because they just have like little quips and stuff that are just really funny puns or jokes. Are you looking for the bathroom? Probably a common thing to ask, but I'm not. Thanks for asking. I will. There is an air dash that I really don't find myself using very often. I find it a little unwieldy to control. I've only used it a few times, but I find that like especially over like a bottomless pit, I'll just kind of fall off, so I don't really use it too much. You can also do other things like grab onto handles and pull them. There's definitely a lot of cool stuff you can do with this yo-yo. You can do like a little twirl move here. That's great for clearing out enemies or for like cutting grass. There are some other like items you can get that will also change the properties of the yo-yo. I won't say what they are just to avoid gameplay spoilers in that regard, I guess. I will say the story is a little I don't want to say generic. I mean, there's really not much to expect with this kind of game. It's not the most elaborate story in the world. Basically, without spoiling too much, the gist is that Penny's on the run from the Emperor of this world because she kind of pantses the guy, unfortunately, ends up in that situation, which, I mean, to be fair, I would also make someone go on the run, too, if they pantsed me in public. Accidentally, of course. She didn't do it on purpose, but it just kind of happened. We're also going to skip this cutscene that happens right here. But yeah, as a result, the Emperor sends out his penguin army, very specifically penguins, which is really funny. It factors into the gameplay, too. After Penny, and we got to kind of platform our way through and run around it. And the cool thing about that is that there's a capture mechanic where at certain segments in these levels you'll have like a horde of penguins chasing after you, and if 5 of them land on you, you're captured and you essentially have to start over from the last checkpoint. So not only are you trying to avoid taking damage from certain enemies and also not fall down and platform properly, but you're trying to avoid these penguins too in specific sections. It really make some of the moments really intense. I mean, sometimes to its detriment, I feel like, but they can be definitely fun and unique in these levels. There also are collectibles. These are called showpieces. There are 3 per level. They are used for unlocking bonus challenge levels outside of the main story mode that you can attempt, which are just like fun little extra levels to do. There are also, you can see here, 3 different NPC side quests per stage. So it really depends. The objectives will vary based on the level. So this one's like, oh, collect these 5 bolts for me, and then we'll be good. There's like a set sequence of these bolts. Some of them are like, take this item to this other NPC within a certain time frame without taking damage. Some will be something like, oh, here are the penguins, for example. So I want to make sure you don't get captured by them. You can do different yo-yo moves to shake them off, but if you get 5 penguins on you, you're captured and you're essentially taken back to the last checkpoint, I believe it is. And you lose some health in the process as well. So between the penguins and the yo-yo mechanics, there are definitely a lot that makes this game feel unique. And once you really chain together different moves, you get in such a cool flow. The level design, I think, really complements, for the most part, I think it complements the yo-yo abilities really, really well. There are definitely some that are better than others. Some worlds stand out to me. This world's a fun one. It's a little basic, but I mean, it's your first world. It's good to start off. There are some really fun kind of like level themes. I know there's a bath one. There's like, is there a snow-based one? I want to say there's a snow-based one. Like desert theme. Kind of some typical themings, but you also have some more unique ones as well. I won't spoil too many of them, just so you can all kind of experience it for yourself. But here's another side quest, just cutting down grass. The checkpoints are pretty generous too, which is good. Overall, like, really great first outing from Evening Star for a 3D platformer collectathon here. The one thing is, I will say, like I mentioned this earlier, the levels are mainly designed for you to go through them as fast as possible, and when the levels do that, I think it really excels. Just the different yo-yo abilities, the level design can really make it so you chain together just different moves, you build up your combo meter, and you get to these levels really quickly. Now, I will say there are some moments, and unfortunately it's the biggest issue with this game for me, it's not a complete game breaker for me. It doesn't ruin the experience necessarily, but it hinders it a little bit. And that is, I mean, there is a lack of polish with this game. I really think this game could have used a few more months to cook and iron out some issues. I will say, at the end of every level, you have this little, they call it a busker bonus. I don't even know what buskin means. Let me know in the comments below what that means. Where you essentially have, oh, I completely butchered that. I was not paying attention. You got to pay attention to those. You have to do, like, essentially almost a quick time event. But if you do it fully, you fill up a meter and you get through that. The issue that I was mentioning before is just there are moments where it's kind of unfortunate, but there are a lot of polishing issues. There are a lot of bugs. Um, if you try to go out of your way to, like, for example, search for some of these collectibles and side quests in these levels, which I was doing at the beginning. The first half of this game, that's how I was playing. I normally, like, with these 3D platformer collectathons, I tend to prioritize, like, oh, like, let me check every nook and cranny to make sure I'm not missing any collectibles. This game really doesn't want you to play that way. I will say there are a few collectibles, especially later on in the game, that are kind of designed that way, unfortunately, and it kind of breaks the pace a little bit. But also, sometimes when you search every nook and cranny, there are moments where you can easily break the game. I've clipped through a bunch of walls. I have gotten stuck on a bunch of ledges. It really, unfortunately, if it doesn't take too much searching, going off the beaten path to figure this out. Like, there have been moments where I've, like, gone up to a level area of the level that I shouldn't go to, like, that I'm not necessarily intended to go to, and, like, there's not really a lot there, but I'm just kind of there, and, like, I'll phase through the floor or kind of get stuck on a ledge there. But it's like, you do have to kind of search it out. But if you are going after those collectibles, I think sometimes that can just kind of happen intrinsically as a result. So something to keep in mind. Like I said, it doesn't completely ruin the game for me, like, far from that, but it definitely does hinder the gameplay experience a little bit. I really think this game could have used maybe a few more months of polish to iron out some of those clipping and ledge kind of grabbing issues, like those hit detection issues is what I'm trying to say. That was the word I was looking for. Where unfortunately that kind of can hinder the experience a little bit. But like, overall, the core gameplay is still super fun. The presentation's great, albeit a little simple, but I think it nails that aesthetic. And the music, of course, is fantastic. And really just the flow of gameplay, when you really get into it, you build up the combo meter and you fly through some of these levels. It is so satisfying to do that. Like, I think here, for example, there was a spot, I'm pretty sure it was this exact spot actually, during the launch live stream I did, where I got stuck on that ledge and I literally could not get out of it for a while. There was a moment, I have a few recordings saved up. I won't show them, just to respect the devs, but, like, there were some moments where I definitely just, like, fell through the floor for no reason. So it's something like, there are things like that to keep in mind. But overall, I mean, it does not ruin the experience at all for me. It's just something to keep in mind. It does hinder the experience, but not overall ruin it. But that is pretty much the overall gist of this game. There are boss fights too, scattered throughout the worlds. I will say there's also a lot more content in this game than I was originally anticipating. And for the asking price, at full price, which I believe is what, $30 I think I paid for this game. Honestly, I definitely feel like it is, at least for me, in my opinion, it's worth the money. But obviously, that is something for you to decide on your own. But it is not full price, so keep that in mind. And you're supporting indie games too, so I am very hopeful for Evening Star's future. They made a really fun, short little 3D platformer here. I would love to see them do another 3D platformer based on their efforts here in the future, maybe with a little more refinement, a little more polish. But for their first outing, really, I gotta commend Evening Star for doing a great job here. The whole team, like, massive props to them for making a really fun and unique, charming Saturn-era platformer. So with that, I feel like that's gonna do it for the non-spoilers part of this review. So if you don't want any spoilers for the rest of this game, I'll give you a few seconds. It won't be long, but just some stuff to talk about. I'll give you a few seconds here. All right, with that, hey, if you're in it for the rest of it, we're gonna get into what I guess you can spoil for this game. Um, the Last Zone, man, fantastic. Love it. Absolutely love the final world of this game. We'll get into my other save file that I did 100%, as you probably saw at the very beginning of this review. Some of the bonus levels were really tricky. There's one in particular I'm trying to remember. If we go to the bonus levels here, it was one of the it might have been this one. Was it this one? There was some of these were really tough, like almost like annoyingly tough. Like, I got through it eventually, but it was definitely frustrating. Yeah, it was this one. Okay, this one I hate. This challenge I hated. It is just like the timing of the fireballs here. It's something you can learn eventually. Like, none of these are absolutely abysmal, but I'm making it look easy because I've done it so many times. There are definitely some tricky ones. Most of these do provide a fair, good challenge. A couple of these I might say are borderline unfair, but this part in particular, yeah, this part in particular is rough. So I'm not going to keep playing it, but I just wanted to shout that out. But they offer a nice little fun side challenge too. Some of my favorite zones in this game, let me see. I mean, I think I love the last one, the Editorium, just because of the, I mean, the song is my favorite song in the game, the Palace Sneak Time Swing, the T-Lopes Christian Whitehead collab one. I love that song. And the zone itself is pretty fun. It's a nice, solid challenge. I did notice some of the most annoying collectibles and some of the most bugs in that zone, I will say. So unfortunately, when you kind of have to go out of your way to explore some of these, that's kind of when the game tends to break. The final boss was interesting, albeit a little confusing at first, but I figured it out from there. Lawberry was decent. Industria was interesting with like the magnetic abilities there. Pangoville was the ice one. I think that was okay. Bubblin' was really fun. I really liked Bubblin'. This was the bath time theme one I had hinted at previously. I think overall, I'm trying to think of the boss fights again. Which one was my favorite? Honestly, there was the race with the puppet, with Taboo against like the puppet Penny, which was pretty fun, albeit a little challenging. Kind of like brought back that feeling of like Metal Sonic race from Sonic CD, which is kind of, I imagine, a big inspiration for that. But this was a very unique zone here. Reminded me of like the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track they added in like, what was it, Wave 5, I think, for that game. So this one was definitely a more unique one, but you also have other ones that are a little more standard. You know, you got like your desert theme, your snow world theme, but then you have more unique ones. So I think there's a lot of variety with the level design here. But like moments like this where you can just completely swing into, you know, the yo-yo, it's so fun. I love being able to do this. You know, it makes it so fun when you can chain different moves like that. That's what I'm talking about, like the highlights of this game. The highs of this game are just chaining all these moves together, and you just get into such a flow. There are moments like this that are just kind of more stop-and-go platforming, which I'm not as big of a fan of, but I still feel like in a game like this, it works better than something like a Sonic game, where that game, it's so easy to go fast. This game, you need to really... I mean, you do need to work to go fast in Sonic, but in Penny, even more so, I would say, you really need to, like, utilize your different moves to build up that momentum and get going. So I think this game kind of exceeds in that regard. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of fun things here. I don't know if there's really much for me to talk about. It's like, I know I did mention the kind of polish issues. That is my biggest complaint about this game, right? And like the fact that it's just like occasional clipping or getting stuck on ledges. The fact that that's my biggest issue, I think, speaks to the quality of this game. Really great 3D platformer from Evening Star. Like I said, you're supporting indie games. I think it's only $30 full price. Maybe it'll go on sale at some point. I don't know what this, how often like Private Division games go on sale, but that is going to do it for this quick little video about Penny's Big Breakaway. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've played this game, let me know what your thoughts are on it, or like any of the other games like Sonic Mania that the team has worked on. Or if you haven't tried this game out, let me know if you're interested now. Let me know if you're willing to check it out. But with that, thank you again so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, keep those yo-yos swinging, and I'll see you on the next one.